Welcome back to our discussion, Ensuring Cloud Migration and Modernization Success, sponsored by Splunk here on Federal News Network. My guests today are Andy Hershey. He's the Global Area Vice President for Cloud Sales and Go-to-Market Transformation at Splunk, and Juliana Vida. She is the Chief Technical Advisor for Public Sector at Splunk. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. And let's talk about the idea of simplicity. We're always told that cloud will make things simplified for federal agencies. I think the reality is that getting to cloud is kind of a difficult, somewhat complex affair. And can you comment on what it takes and how to address the complexity?
Absolutely, and I think being a bit of a broken record, I would say first, I would suggest that any agency that is planning to modernize or migrate to the cloud, that again, they come up with the outcomes expected or the objectives, the business goals or mission goals they're trying to achieve. And this is really your North Star, so to speak. Without it, it just becomes a science project or a technical endeavor that keeps going and not necessarily delivers the right results. And then the second part of my answer is exactly where your data comes in. And by leveraging data, that you have through an analytics platform, you can understand, where you stand and check progress as you go, making your migration initiatives seamless. And with the right platform, you don't have to worry about data ingestion, normalization, or standardization. It's done for you. And by ingesting and correlating data from a wide variety of sources, you now gain real-time situational awareness, the what, why, and how to drive confident decisions.
Yeah, Andy, you mentioned it's not necessarily simple. It's not, call it one big muscle movement. It's many, many movements. And those happen before, during, and after the switch over to your new environment. And like you mentioned, the end-to-end monitoring gives insights into performance, and it can help address those fears related to losing control that we talked about before, one of those fears. So monitoring the usage of various components can give the IT teams the confidence to rationalize applications and migrate only what's necessary. This eliminates excess, it saves money, and it builds trust and confidence across the organization. And if I can just dig in a little bit to the before, during, and after pieces. So before you have to look at your environment. You have to look at what you have, measure a baseline, if you will, of the user experience and performance. And then you can define your post-migration levels where you want to be. Of course, you want that end state to meet or exceed the current levels. And remember that degradation in one performance area can be tolerated if it's balanced or offset in another. So that's before. During the migration, you need to closely monitor all those performance metrics that you set up front. And variation from the baseline is a very early indicator of trouble. Things aren't going so well. But you can identify those well before you get into production, fix them early, save time and resources, and move on. Because you know what they say, bad news doesn't necessarily get better with age. So the earlier you do it, the more you can adjust and get to the end state faster.
Just to zero in on that whole issue of the data and the monitoring, what are some of the sources that you find are key to managing the process in such a way that it's orderly and secure?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think, honestly, you want all the data, right? You want all the data, any data that's out there, you want to capture it, because the challenge is leveraging that data. It's all in all different shapes and sizes. How do you leverage that volume, that variety, the velocity of it coming at you? And again, going back to the point about the data platform, having that platform that can take in data that may be gobbledygook in so many different ways, but it can help you make proactive business decisions, whether on analytics, operations, security, application development, and make the right decision. So that is why it's key. I think going back to everything Juliana and Tom, you touched on about the complexity, how do you leverage that data and what data? My short answer, guys, is all the darn data.
All right, so that could be data from your network logs or from user activities and that kind of thing, data about operations and not necessarily just programmatic data.
That's right. That data can answer multiple questions. It can answer questions about security and operations and what end users are doing, what employees are doing, a wide range of things like that, and help you make the proper decisions. There's good information out there that if you can leverage it all, you make the right decisions much more quickly and easily.
All right, then the final question, I guess, is how people get started. What's your best advice for the first initial steps, and how do you plan out to get to where you want to be with that hybrid cloud, secure, in control of your data?
Yeah, this is the key, isn't it? And the short answer is there's no one defined process. People want a playbook or an SOP, and that just doesn't exist with cloud migration. But there are some best practices that we've seen that we can share and would be helpful. And I'll say, going back to the non-technical, some of these they're about the people and processes. So the first thing, and this may sound simple, but it's just about agencies and leaders opening their mind and their door to have conversations with technology vendors and partners who can talk about their specific mission or end state, and then what the value of a modernization can bring them. We talked about the mission focus before. In many cases, this value can be almost instantaneous once agencies open their mind to them. And the technology partners are there to share potential value or outcomes that you may not have even thought of yet. There's no need for agencies to reinvent the wheel in a lot of these cases because industry is already working on that particular need or that pain point or something very close to it. It's just having the open mind and the door to have a conversation. The second best practice is about education, educating not just at the top level of the agency and the technical leadership, but the whole workforce about the benefits of cloud migration and how everyone can benefit from it and be part of it. I think we've all experienced some kind of technical upgrade, on our machine or our laptop. And it's hard to embrace that when you haven't been told ahead of time what's going to happen to you in your environment.
Two quick things. One is from a technical perspective, there's fast track programs available to really accelerate the overall awareness and time to value. So don't reinvent the wheel. Take the time to research what other orgs inside and outside of the government have done. We talked about VA, HHS, Smithsonian, et cetera. See, can cloud help you with similar initiatives? Innovate faster, be more secure, scale better, then test drive it. Nothing is better than getting your data in an environment like that and seeing the value is really there. For example, we have a program at Splunk that's had a lot of success called the Autobahn. We enable customers to really evaluate our software with their own data, or make it very easy. And then what we do is when they decide to move forward, we help them deploy that in production, and it significantly reduces their time to market and time to value with Splunk.
We thank you all for a great discussion. I want to thank today's guests. Juliana Vida is the Chief Technical Advisor for Public Sector at Splunk. You also heard from Andy Hershey. He's the Global Area Vice President for Cloud Sales and Go-to-Market Transformation at Splunk. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. You've been listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Splunk.